The White Sox played a split squad, and Colson Montgomery was not in the lineup for either game. Is it time to be worried about his back spasms becoming a long-term problem? Let's discuss on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert at SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already, and also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, the White Sox played a split squad games against the Milwaukee Brewers yesterday, with each team taking one of the games. The concern was you had two starting lineups, and Colson Montgomery's name was not on either of them, even though some rest and an off day was supposed to calm his back spasms down. So let's discuss if it's time to be concerned about this being a long-term issue and if it means time to move him to another position. Then let's touch on who needed a hot start to spring training and is getting one and who is not. And finally, let's go over how top pitching prospects Noah Schultz and Hagen did in their work yesterday and if sending them down to the minor league camp was a bit premature. All right, so I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on this podcast. However, if you've already got scouts saying Colson Montgomery would be a plus defender at, say, third base, and now this is the second back issue for a 23-year-old player, maybe shortstop just isn't the position for Montgomery. You know, the theory kind of makes sense considering Montgomery already missed time in 2023 with a back problem. And if he's having back issues at such a young age, maybe he's just not physically able to play a position that demands a lot of bending and stretching, pulling, all that type of stuff. But what this really comes down to is Colson was scratched from the lineup a week ago with back spasm, and the injury's just been downplayed ever since. And the White Sox have been an organization that has earned every right of skepticism to be skeptical about. They've earned the skepticism. They've earned the cynicism. They've earned the frustration. And I was already skeptical of them skewing the shortstop race toward Montgomery. The only reason I'm sort of was okay with it, and I outlined it on a show about 2 weeks ago, is he's the only one in camp at shortstop in this position battle that has tremendous upside. Sorry, folks. I do like Brooks Baldwin, but he doesn't have near the potential to be a great ball player like Colson does. I'm just sorry. Yeah, Montgomery might have the production at the minor league level, but a lot of the stuff that, his traits and stuff, yeah, he's a bat-to-ball skill guy, but not a lot of pop there. Could be a decent bat-to-ball guy, but he's just trending more and more to Danny Mendick every time I watch him. And there's nothing wrong with having a guy like him, like Brooks Baldwin, on the cheap as a utility player. And again, I like him, but I'm just saying Colson just has much more upside. So that's the only reason why I'm sort of okay if Colson Montgomery was the opening day shortstop. But I am joining the choir of those that are skeptical that his back problem is not a major concern as the White Sox keep trying to sell. And I love what friend of the show, Bez of On Tap Sportsnet, had to say about how the White Sox have been downplaying this. And he tweeted this out. This is at Bez Beyond the Pen. The White Sox are downplaying Montgomery's injury just like they downplayed his struggles last year. He missed 2.5 months in 2023 with a back injury. So that is the actual concern here. This organization just keeps downplaying clearly perceived problematic issues. And again, I'm not a doctor, but usually a 23-year-old man should not be dealing with back issues. And if it's a potential physical issue, then stop putting these guys in situations where their bodies might not be able to handle it. Hey, downplay away, baby. Although Elijah Evans of Future Sox, he did tweet out at Elijah EV8. There's a White Sox B game, mostly minor league guys. I'll be watching on the backfields today with the team on the road in Scottsdale. Colson Montgomery listed on the roster for it at Future Sox. So, he is potentially there. Maybe this is his first work. After yesterday's game, Will Venable did not have much of an update, according to Elijah Evans. Again, I got the tweet up for those watching on YouTube at Elijah EV8. Not much of an update on Colson Montgomery today as he continues to work back from a minor injury. Quote, doing better still day to day if he continues to make progress, end quote, said Venable. So the thing is, though, it's just more of the principle and the process that the White Sox have never done well at. You had 2 games in which to put him back in, and he was out of both lineups. And circling back to our buddy Bez, And I got that bet with him with Chase Mydroth. I'm hoping Chase, Greek god of walks, gets me those 70 walks and I can get a free lunch. But what Bez, he wrote this on Tap Sportsnet, and I want to share with you at least a little snippet. Otherwise, go and visit it. Here's what he writes. The concern now isn't just Montgomery's injury, but the Sox tendency to downplay issues that could affect player development and team performance. The White Sox handling of player injuries and struggles has long been an issue for the organization, and this situation feels eerily familiar. Side note, he has a hyperlink. If you click the hyperlink, go straight to a Eloy Jimenez article about his struggles and injury history. Back to the piece. Fans and analysts alike wonder if the team is withholding important details about Montgomery's current injury or its potential long-term implications for his development. The lack of clarity surrounding Montgomery's injuries only amplify the frustration felt by White Sox fans who have watched the organization repeatedly downplay serious issues. That's why this is a concern, okay? Because you're right. He could play in this B game, ramp himself up, be back playing next week. It could just be, random spasms that you get. Maybe he's not hydrating enough, that type of stuff. But at the same point, we've been dealing with an organization that can't see that a 23-year-old man, and he's a man at this point, has back problems. And think about how long it took the organization to figure out, hey, maybe Luis Robert Jr.'s body just maybe can't handle a full season playing strictly center field. You finally had Chris Getzo. You know what? We maybe have to ease up his workload on running all over the field and then asking him to swing as hard as he can at a ball. Maybe his body just isn't up for that. Those instant, physical physical impacts that has to happen. So maybe we'll move him to right and left field every now and again. Maybe we'll have him DH. Huh? Sounds interesting. Took them that long. Luis Robert Jr. has been playing professional baseball, since 2020? And this dogma from both Colson and the organization that, nope, he's a shortstop. Why you got 2 now warning signs, plus you've got the scouting report. This is always what you go back to. MLB Pipeline has this. He moves well at shortstop, making plays with a quick first step, good agility for his size, and a fine internal clock and solid arm strength. Chicago believes he'll stay at shortstop despite his size, while some scouts think he could be a plus defender at third base, where he spent most of his 2-week Arizona Fall League stint in October. Are we actually putting him in the best position too? Maybe, and sometimes scouts get things wrong. But like prospect guru for The Athletic, Keith Law, who used to be in a front office, he's been shouting from the mountaintops that Colson Montgomery is not a shortstop. And maybe you should just take this latest back scare and go, maybe third base, where, yes, there's still some bending, but it's more instant reaction and it's not a ton. Or, hey, maybe first base, because he does have some size. Or, yeah, let's make sure we're DHing him too, because he's got power. Maybe this can't hurt. And also just downplaying his 214 season, thinking, well, still at an OPS over 700. That's good enough. Hit 18 home runs. That's fine. Let's make him a big league shortstop now. So let's just skew this competition in his favor. That could really hurt Colson's development. And I'm with some of you that I'm at the point where I do want to see what he can do at the big leagues. I know there's plenty that have. When I consume White Sox content, you do get a certain part of this audience and a certain part of the fan base that is like, hey, can we finally see what this guy can do? Can we finally see it? I know I would. But I'm in that gray area because I do lean more towards, hey, at least send him back to AAA just to make sure the strong September in Arizona Fall League was not a mirage, because he still struck out 164 times last year at AAA. And he did miss some precious development time in 2023 when he played just 64 games, and the knock on him was maybe not being able to hit velocity. I want to make sure when Colson Montgomery comes up, he's here, okay? He's here, and he's here for good. And I get sometimes, guys come up and they flail and they go back down, and there is the concern of what if he does start at AAA and then he's hitting 098 to start the year? What will that do? I think I think he still profiles to be a big league player no matter what. You do hit 18 home runs. You do have a 700 OPS in minors. That should speak for something. But I want this guy to be a core piece. So why rush him when this season is already lost? That's the key, the balance. The White Sox have never found the balance. They are always downplaying this. Why create a potential Gordon Beckham situation in that, not enough patience was given to him to iron out flaws in his swing in the minors. And then it got to the point that nothing could be done to fix him. He was beyond repair. Everybody knew how to get him out. He had that long swing and it was over. Maybe down in the minors, a lot of things could have been tinkered to maybe get his swing a little bit more quicker like Gordon Beckham. So maybe you might need to do that. And they did ask Montgomery to do some swing changes, and he did work on some things. So why not give him some, games that won't matter to your big league record? And yes, I know the irony is they're going to lose 100 games, but still, I would rather just flirt with losing 100 games than losing on a historic 121 games. You have that. And also, I've had plenty of guests on the show. Go back to, when I've had Elijah Evans and James Fox, and some other prospect gurus that I've had on here, that they said that he got sent to AAA way too fast. And if you do look at his numbers, crushes an A ball, but every time he went to AA, the 2 times, struggled to hit. And then they just send him straight to AAA last year. And maybe the prevailing thought is within the organization, again, they could potentially live with maybe he is a low batting average guys. There are low batting average guys, but they have good OPS makeup and they hit bombs. And Colson Montgomery has that potential. But don't downplay the casual fans' concerns on the 214 average. And instead point out to what you're asking them to do that. Make it clear. This is what we're asking them to do. We want him to get on base. And when he does get a hold of one, we want him to crush it. We're looking for him to hit 30 to 40 home runs. Okay, I can live with that. But there's also then, he could be Corey Seager, he could be this. Okay, well, just don't rush it. We don't need to rush everything, especially when you get frustrated. Like, look at catcher, even though Corey Lee got hurt, and I'll talk about that. They've definitely skewed the catching race to favor more of a Corey Lee, Matt Thaiss, Omar Narvaez to start the year. They've got themselves plenty of coverage. They're going to be patient with Teal and Caro. But with Montgomery, and Teal and Caro have much better production in the minors, but with Montgomery, they're having him compete with Jacob Amaya. Come on now. It should have been at least, definitely they just shouldn't have skewed it. And also don't tell us everything is fine with his back right now. At the very least, just tell us, hey, it's still early in spring training. We're going to give him some rest now. And if you can get back into the lineup by next week, then yeah, he's probably still going to be our opening day starter. But if not, yeah, he's going to start the season at AAA. See how easy that was? Well, the White Sox have a lot of spring training battles going on. Let's discuss some players who needed a hot start to make a claim for a roster spot or rebuild some of their trade value that got off to a heater, and those who have not. And that's after the break on Locked On White Sox. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms, so make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. So right away, sounds like Davis Martin's 2 strong starts to spring training has maybe earned him the opening nod. At least that is the reported direction the team is going, according to a CBS Sports little blurb. They mentioned that Martin is expected to be named the opening day starter per MLB.com White Sox beat writer Scott Merkin, although I checked his Twitter, and there's no mention of that. And I've checked a couple of his recent stories, and I haven't really seen him saying that Davis Martin is going, they're leaning towards Davis Martin being the starter, but it makes sense given that kick change has just been devastating right now. So why not ride it as long as you can? But otherwise, a strong start to spring training was needed from Luis Robert Jr. if the front office still has hopes to trade him by opening day. And oh boy, is he off to a great start. He now has a 1.186 OPS. And while it's still not likely going to get the team, another team to give up 2 of its top 5 prospects without needing to cover a major injury, you're not just going to be like somebody like, hey, we're going to now go get Luis Robert Jr. because he's got an OPS of 1.186. No, it's probably going to be, this might be more of, okay, if you've got a major injury, now they're definitely going to be like, well, at least he's showing that he's healthy. I don't know if I'm going to give up my 2 top 5 prospects, but at least you might get, a phone call if there's a major injury, whereas you still might, if there's a major injury, you might get a team saying, you know what, I still have to worry about him being available, that type of stuff. And remember, it's spring training, but some guys, they needed a hot start to establish that they are worthy of a starting job or making the 26-man roster. So here's who is making the case that, did get that heater that they needed. Brandon Drury, he's 7 for 20 with 4 doubles and a homer. He's on a non-roster invite and making a case to make the team in a backup role. After he had that terrible 2024 season with the Angels, he has a 1.081 OPS. Also, Lenine Sosa's strong September in 2024 might not be a mirage after all. He has a 1.004 OPS and 15 at-bats, and this is critical for him because he's out of minor league options, and he's got to make sure that he can hold off, young prospects such as Montgomery, Chase Mydroth, and Baldwin. So he needs a strong start to make a case that, hey, you want to go with me, okay? At least to start the season. And that's actually really about it for position players off to a hot start that needed one for trade value or to make the roster. On the pitching side, lots of bullpen spots obviously up for grabs and the final 2 rotation spots. And honestly, pitching hasn't been the problem for the Sox in spring training. Overall, they have a 5.50 ERA in the Arizona Air, which is actually kind of a good number. And remember, that number is always going to be inflated because of how, just simple how ERA is calculated and the limited innings guys are pitching right now. I mean, Justin Anderson giving up 7 runs put his ERA at infinity. So obviously it's going to put that number. And there are some guys, obviously, I'll get to them in a minute, that are having bad spring trainings, and that is skewing that number. But for most part, I've been pleased with the pitching. You got Penn Murphy, Cam Boozer, and Jordan Leisure. They're off to great starts to spring training to make their case for a bullpen spot. Peyton Polite, he's been impressive too in his long shot bid to join the opening day bullpen. Sean Burke, I've talked about a few times on this show. I think he has cemented his grip on the 4 starter spot. ESPN listed him as one of 9 players scouts are raving about in spring training. Bryce Wilson, he's been solid in his appearances to make a case for the 5th spot while Drew Thorpe is still recovering from that surgery setback. He went 3 innings in the Sox 8-2 victory in the away game portion of that Sox and Brewers split squad. Gave up 3 hits, allowed 3 walks though. So not the best, but still only 1 run, struck out 3. Shane Smith, he had that terrible first inning in his first spring training start, but otherwise he's looked really impressive. That fastball's up to 99 miles per hour. Nick Nastrini, he's kept his name in the hat for that spot too, or maybe a bullpen spot by limiting the damage. He has given up 6 hits in 5 innings, but he's allowed just 1 run. So, and that's kind of what you wanted to see. You wanted to see him command the ball a little bit better. And honestly, I should go over some of the pitchers who actually needed a strong start and have not gotten the heater they needed, because that's more of where, when you look at the pitching, you want to go over the guys that are just not doing well. And there's a few of them. James Karinchak, velocity still down. He's given up 5 hits, 2 walks, 2 earned runs in 3 innings. And the velo is still not at the ideal 94. And that's a concern because he was having velocity issues last year too. It's been a concern since they started inspecting for spider tack that he hasn't been as effective pitcher. They're just correlation, not saying anything, but he was also able to get it at least to 94. And that's usually the ideal mile per hour that you want to at least be able to survive in the big leagues if your spin stuff doesn't exactly spin crazy, doesn't spin nasty. And, the correlation is James's spin stuff wasn't spinning as much once the glove inspections came into place. Not saying, not throwing anything out there. They're just saying he was really effective and nasty with a 94 mile per hour, fastball. And then they start inspecting gloves. And then he's suddenly not having his nasty spin stuff. Lucas Giolito had the same problem. Frazier Ellard, he's given up 4 hits and 2 runs in 3 innings, not making the best case to be one of the lefties in the bullpen. Gus Varland might want to step it up too. He's given up 3 runs, 4 walks, and 4 hits in 3 innings. Still early, obviously, though. In terms of hitting guys that needed to get off to a great start and just have not, Joey Gallo on the non-roster invite. They were kind of hoping that he would be that left-handed power bat, and he has just 2 singles, with 1 coming yesterday. You basically are seeing the all or nothing guy, and it's mostly nothing. He has 6 Ks. Bobby Dolbeck, another non-roster power hitter, has gotten just 7 at-bats total. That definitely shows you that I don't think they have much faith in him at all. They must be seeing something in the workouts where they're like, yeah, well, we invited you to camp. Here's a t-shirt. And Jacob Amaya, he's actually showing some good glove work at short, but he is 1 for 11. And he got his hit yesterday. So, like I said, you can definitely feel like this shortstop competition has been skewed for Colson Montgomery to win. And you want to be like, why? You don't need to rush him. Corey Lee, he left yesterday's game with a hand injury. So that I just bring that note up because, one guy that has been showing some might be getting some more at bats because of this. Kyle Teal, and he had a 3-run homer. So if there's an injury that can cause Lee to miss some time, maybe Teal's making a better case than Edgar Caro to be the catcher who breaks with the team in spring training. Corey Lee basically joked, I was seeing on X today that he joked that he's like, well, it wasn't a good idea to karate chop a bat because he was trying to make a throw down to third and hit somebody's bat when he was doing that. X-rays were negative, but if he does miss some time, because these things can be tricky, looks like Kyle Teal has definitely been making his case that maybe he could break with big league camp and make the 26-man roster. Well, two guys that are not going to be on the 26-man roster, it's been clear, it's been actually official, Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith. They definitely, they're going down to minor league camp now, but they still represented the hope of better days to come, and they were on the mound yesterday as they are, you still want to see them pitch, and it was nice to see them, show some hope. And let's discuss how they did in yesterday's outings after the break on Locked On White Sox. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. There we go. Don't want to hold it upside down. Don't want to give these babies, a bad name or a bad look because they are amazing. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's a perfect grab and go snack for busy days. My wife and I were trying to eat more heart healthy, and I was munching on some of these recently. Told my wife again, give these babies a try. She loved them. And again, I like the roasted salt flavor. Perfect blend of roasted and salt so you don't feel thirsty after eating a handful. Really quick. Also picked up a pack of the honey roasted. Oh my gosh. I want to know where they found these bees to make the most perfect honey. I mean, it is such a great blend of honey and roasted goodness. And it's a great quick snack, too, with no-shell options. I don't have to clean them up around my desk. But, hey, if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options, they are a classic favorite. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. Get snacking. Get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox or wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. And I got an interesting email yesterday from, I deleted it. Sorry about that. But basically, it was the rankings for White Sox podcasts. We've now cracked the top 15. Woo! There we go. Moving on up in the world. I'm looking at you, Aju. I'm taking you down from the 108. But I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's build up this community some more. Again, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel or wherever at Locked On White Sox or wherever you get your podcasts, as this show's available on all major podcast platforms. Feel free to leave a 5-star review. We're at 4.5. Let's get that rating up on Apple or Spotify. Well, turns out Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith, they're human after all. Who knew? The top 2 left-handed pitching prospects in all of baseball, they got 2 innings each in yesterday's 3-2 defeat in the home portion of the split squad with the Brewers. The human part is they both combined to issue 5 walks. Schultz had 3, Smith had 2. Don't worry, they pitched clean innings, didn't give up any runs. And remember, we're still very early in their careers that, we don't need to get worried. You could still be very hopeful that, these are the guys that are going to, lead us to better days. And the encouraging part is it sounds like Noah Schultz noticed a mechanical issue and made an adjustment. This is Elijah Evans at Elijah EV8. With command drifting a bit today, Noah Schultz said that he was flying open a bit on his glove side, but he corrected that between innings and was happy with how everything turned out. Schultz was more in the 94 mile per hour range today after sitting around 96 to 97 last week. I can imagine that the slight mechanical adjustment could also be part of what dipped his velo a tad. Nothing to worry about in my eyes. So good to see self-awareness, or maybe good at taking coaching. Also, this is fine that Schultz, had a little bit more walks because he only threw 8 pitches in his first spring training outing. So he got to work on some stuff, and he got to work on it against some better competition than he'll be facing in Double-A. However, I would like to see them get another, both Schultz and Smith. I would have liked to see them get another appearance before going to minor league camp, because Elijah Evans did tweet this out at Elijah EV8 from, he's from Future Sox and Just Baseball. White Sox trim their MLB camp roster. Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith to MILB, Jake Eater and Hario Iriarte to AAA, Winkelman Gonzalez to AA. Considering how closely they work together every day, I guess Schultz and Hagen will both be at AA BAM, but we'll see. I honestly, it still couldn't hurt to give them what, as I label, a controlled taste of the big leagues, because it's an exhibition season. They're coming in usually a little bit later in the game when some of these guys have now started to get hit, pinch hit for. But it couldn't hurt to give them just maybe one or two more appearances. And if anything, just give us something to watch. Come on, man. But this is what Schultz said when it came to why maybe his velo would have been down too. He said this to reporters after the game via the Chicago Tribune's Lamont Pope. Quote, first outing, I threw 8 pitches, so there was a lot to work on, said Schultz, who threw 32 pitches Wednesday. Throwing off speed, throwing everything, mixing different things in, different counts. I'm happy with what I did today, end quote. And Smith had 2 walks. He threw 24 pitches, only 12 for strikes. He was a little hard on himself after the game, according to Pope. Quote, I was trying to go with more fastball command Wednesday. I was kind of frustrated with the last time against San Diego. Today, it was all right. I kind of got away from some batters. Body kind of out of whack mechanics-wise. Threw a slider that gets me back in my mechanics. Just stay through it. That helps a lot. I'm super hard on myself, but I threw 24 pitches in those 2 innings. Hopefully, during this season, that's on pace for a quality start, end quote. So, them even acknowledging like, hey, our mechanics are still getting out of whack. That's another reason why you're probably not going to see them in the big leagues this year. You want to make sure that everything is refined and perfectly, because they are the anchors that will hopefully bring better days. And what I really love and what I've been seeing and what I've been reading is these guys seem very mature, and that is needed because these two must be the pillars of the next good White Sox team. And again, why I can say this is a controlled environment, these games don't count. And some of these guys, they are going to be facing our career minor leaguers, and future financial advisors, but they're still a step up from what's, say Smith might face in Winston-Salem if he does go to high A to start the season. Although again, as Elijah pointed out in his tweet, and it kind of makes more sense. Why not just have him start at AA? I mean, I know it's 4 innings, but he's looked downright nasty to the point where like going to Winston-Salem would just be a waste of his time. It really would. And also, again, why do you want to break up that chemistry, that camaraderie that they've had? I mean, yes, they're going to be pitching on separate days, but it can't hurt for them to bond, kind of grow off each other, because, again, this is how we're going to get back, hopefully, to at least flirting with 83 wins. And again, with Schultz, I hope they do send him back to AAA. I mean to AA, because I don't really want him to start yet at AAA. Because that's a bandbox. You want to still keep his confidence going. You want to still have him feeling good about himself. Maybe at some point you send him to AAA, because even though I am a huge proponent of develop your pitchers actually at AA and only use AAA as a parking lot for if you just don't have a spot for these promising prospects at the big league level, or obviously for your organizational depth. Hence why Jairo Iriarte is going down to AAA, because they don't have a spot for him in the rotation, and he's now being pursued probably most likely as organizational depth. Not a bad thing, but that's kind of where you want those guys to go, because there's only so many figurative bullets in those arms. So I prefer them. Yes, go with the route that you did with Drew Thorpe. That's perfect. But again, as I've said, the whole point of this year is to build up Smith and Schultz's arms to be able to handle a big league workload. You might as well just have it start, at AA, but yeah, give them at least a carrot. And if they're doing well, give them a promotion to AAA Charlotte. But you just obviously want them to start off right and not in that bandbox of Charlotte, where maybe there's a crisis of, a potential, conflict in their confidence, and they can be definitely feeling good about themselves. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast with hosts Dominique Martino and Matt on A. MLB fantasy draft season is here. Be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And I'll be back tomorrow to discuss if Justin Ishbia is the ideal owner or not after some more information has come out on at least how his brother Matt acts and some other things that have came out. 670 The Score had some segments out that I kind of want to review on tomorrow's show. Plus, I'll tackle Bob Nightingale's recent piece on Tim Anderson and some interesting nuggets about his time with the White Sox that came out in that piece on the USA Today. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding if it's time to be concerned about Colson Montgomery's injury being a long-term problem that should also maybe move him off of shortstop, who is off to a hot start in spring training and who is not, and going over top pitching prospects Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith's outings yesterday. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub or at Locked On White Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.